There is a reason your specific person hasn't come back yet, and it has nothing to do with them. It isn't timing. It isn't that they moved on. It isn't that other person or the distance or the way things ended. Quantum physics actually points to the real reason. And once you understand it, you're going to see that you have been doing the one thing that keeps them away without even realizing it. I'm going to walk you through what the science actually shows piece by piece, and then I'm going to tell you about a client of mine whose specific person came back after months of complete silence, so you can see exactly how this works in real life, not just with theory. If you're new here, hello, I'm so happy that you're here. Thanks for joining me. I'm your Muse Traci. On this channel, I help you unlock the power you already have but can't access. I help you break through where years of trying has failed. And the biggest hurdle of all, I help you go from intellectually knowing the law, knowing all of this wonderful information, to permanently embodying it. If that sounds good to you, you're definitely welcome to join me here, subscribe to the channel, stick around, and harness your own creative power. So let me start with what is actually happening, because I think you already kind of feel it and know it, but maybe you just haven't had the words to really explain it. So your specific person is a reflection. They are you pushed out, as Neville would call it. Whatever you are assuming to be true about them, about the relationship, about whether they want you, is exactly what you keep seeing reflected back. And right now, if they haven't come back, it's because somewhere inside you, you are still holding the assumption of their absence on some level. You are still the version of you who is waiting, who is missing them, who wakes up and the first thing they feel is that the person isn't here. And the world is just faithfully returning that state to you, because that is the only thing the world can actually do. So I want you to really take that in and be willing to look openly and honestly about how you have been referencing your current circumstances before we go any further, before we go into the sciencey science of it all, because the science is going to confirm it in a way that you can't unsee, but we have to be willing to look at things honestly, right? So let's start with the most famous experiment. I'm sure you've all heard of it in quantum physics, the double slit experiment. When scientists sent tiny particles toward a screen, those particles behave like a spread out wave of possibilities, existing in many places at once, not committed to any one single position. But the moment someone observed them, the moment they were measured, that wave of possibility collapsed into one fixed outcome. The simple act of observation determined what became real, manifested. Without observation, it remained pure possibility. It remained in the wave state, infinite possibilities. With observation, a single potential hardened into fact. So sit with that for a moment if you need to. At the deepest measurable level of reality, the observer participates in what shows up, is an essential participant in what shows up. Nothing is actually fixed until it's looked at. So if that is sinking in, because I need you to see what you have been observing and relate it to this finding through this experiment. If you have been observing their absence, every time you refresh their profile, social media profile, every time you notice they still haven't reached out, every time you lie in bed and feel the ache of them not being there, you are the observer and you are collapsing that wave of infinite possibility into the same single outcome over and over and over. Absence, and more absence. And you are measuring the exact reality you say you don't want, and every measurement hardens it into fact again. And here's the painful loop most people are trapped in. The more it hurts that they're gone, the more you check. And the more you check, the more you confirm they're gone, which makes it hurt more, which makes you check again, which makes it, right? You get the point. You are in a feedback loop of observing absence, and you have mistaken that loop for love. It isn't love. It is you, hour after hour, voting for the reality that actually breaks your heart. And this was the exact loop that my client was living in, and I'm going to come back to her story in just a moment. Now, the second concept, and this one is going to start to set you free, is called superposition. Before that particle is observed, it isn't sitting in one state waiting to be discovered, right? It's not like you're just waiting to see, which is another place people get stuck in. No, it's in all possible states at the same time. It's in the waveform of infinite possibilities. It's all of those simultaneously, infinite parallel realities. Physicists call this superposition. Every possible, reality coexist until something collapses it down into the one singular reality that you're observing. Now, apply that to you. Before you decide anything, your relationship with your person exists in every possible state simultaneously. The version where they never speak to you again exists. The version where they're already back, already yours, already reaching for you with their whole heart exists just as fully. All the possibilities already exist. I can't list them all here, obviously, but you get the point. They all exist just as fully formed, as pure possibility, right? They're all equally real and equally available. Neither one is more true than the other. So the only real question is not, will they come back? The question is, which of those states are you currently living in? Which one are you collapsing into your physical reality by occupying it, by observing it in your thoughts, in your assumptions? Because you're always collapsing one of them. You don't get to be void your observation. Every day, you're either the person living in the reality of their absence or the person living in the reality of their presence. And whichever one you are being is the one that gets observed and therefore selected. So let's make this really practical right now. Ask yourself honestly, when you woke up this morning, which reality did you get out of bed in? The one where you've lost them, or the one where they're already yours and the outer world just hasn't shown it yet? Be honest, because your answer is your manifestation. You have been faithfully, consistently, powerfully collapsing the state of loss, if that's true for you, right? If you have been living in that they're not here, you have been collapsing that into your reality. Not because you're doing anything wrong necessarily, but because no one ever told you that the observing itself is the mechanism of creation. Now, the third concept, and this is the one that dissolves the thing you're probably most afraid of, the distance, the silence, the no contact, the fact that they feel so far away. And this principle is entanglement. Quantum entanglement is one of the strangest and most thoroughly documented findings in all of physics. When two particles become entangled, they stay connected no matter how far apart they move. You can separate them by an unimaginable distance, and a change in one is reflected instantly in the other. There is no signal traveling between them that scientists can find, right? So it's not like, oops, we went too far, so the signal got broken. No, they simply act as one thing across any amount of space. And Einstein was so settled by this finding that he called it spooky action at a distance, because it broke his sense that separation was real. But it has been confirmed again and again. I'm not making it up. For entangled things, distance is simply not a barrier. So hear this. You and your person are connected, and that connection does not care about physical distance. It does not care that they haven't texted in 3 months. It does not care that they blocked you or moved cities or told you they were done and meant it in the moment. At the level where creation actually happens, there is no distance between you and them at all. The separation you are grieving lives only in the world of appearances, the world of your senses. In consciousness, which is the only place anything is truly happening, it's the real reality, as Neville would say, you have never once been separated from anything or anyone. Your assumption of them does not have to travel any distance to reach them. It reaches them because you were never separated. So when your mind says, but they're far away now, but there's someone else, but too much time has passed, you can answer it honestly. Distance is not real to the true connection, the truth of your connection. That is not wishful thinking. That is how the fabric of reality behaves at its core. And the fourth concept ties all of this back together. There is a serious, respected interpretation in physics that says every possibility that can happen does happen, each playing out in its own branch of reality. And I'm not asking you to stake your life on the physics of that. I'm asking you to notice that Neville taught the exact same thing long before it was maybe discovered in these sciences. What did Neville say? He said, creation is finished. Every state that could ever exist already exists right now, completely, fully formed, which means the version of your life where your person is back is not something you have to build from scratch or create. It's not off in the future waiting to happen at some later time. It exists. It's finished. In this moment, you don't create it at a later time. You move into it now in this moment, you select it and you occupy it until you are simply the person who lives there. So those are the 4 principles. So let me now tell you about my client, because everything I just walked you through, she lived it. And I want to talk to you about how she did and the results that she got. So she came to me months after her person had gone quiet, cold, whatever you want to call it, no contact at all. He had slowly pulled away, stopped responding the way he used to. And then eventually there was just silence. And she was doing exactly what almost everyone does. She was watching his social media. She checked his profile constantly, sometimes dozens, lots of times per day. She read meaning into every online status, every photo, every gap. She replayed the ending on loop, hunting for the exact moment things went wrong and fell apart so that she could finally understand it. And in the language we just used, she was observing his absence every waking hour and collapsing the same painful reality into being again and again and again. So the first thing we worked on had nothing to do with him. Surprise, surprise. It had everything to do with her concept of herself. Because underneath all the longing was a woman who deep down believed she was the one who gets left, the one who isn't chosen, the one who has to earn love and still will probably lose it. And as long as she was quietly being that woman, the mirror had no choice but to keep showing her a man who left and didn't choose her. And he wasn't the problem to solve here. He was the reflection. There was no one to change but her, as I'm sure you've all heard me say before. So we changed it at the level of her beliefs, her self-concept. We built a new self-concept patiently. It can take a little bit of time, but she became, in her own mind, a woman who is deeply and easily loved, a woman whose specific person adores her, thinks about her, and comes back to her, not as a performance she was straining to keep up, right? But as a quiet, settled choice about who she now is now deciding and choosing to be. It's a choice, you guys, your self-concept. We worked until that identity felt more natural to her than the old one. And that shift alone started changing how she carried herself, how she spoke, the things she noticed in her day. The second thing we did was move her into the end. Instead of replaying the breakup, she began living from already having the reunion. Every night she would go into that soft, drowsy state right before sleep, the state where the mind is most impressionable, and she would occupy one simple scene, not a big elaborate movie about how things played out. No, one small moment that could only be true if they were already back together. A specific, ordinary moment of closeness, And she would stay inside of it, feeling it as real, feeling it from the first person as though it were happening to her right then until it felt natural and she eventually drifted off to sleep inside of that feeling. She was giving her subconscious a new reality to reflect. The third thing was the hardest, and it's the one most people struggle with the most that I see. She stopped observing the absence. She stopped checking. Every time the urge rose to look and check, to measure, to see whether the outer world was catching up yet, she saw the urge and she just didn't follow through. You don't have to follow every urge that comes up because she now understood what the checking was actually doing. So every look was a measurement, every measurement collapsing the wrong state. Every time she refreshed that page, she was casting a vote for absence, right? She was choosing that reality again. So she stopped choosing the thing she didn't actually want. And I won't pretend that that piece was easy for her. It wasn't, especially, in the early part of the practice. It felt to her almost unbearable not to look. But she treated the urge to check as the old self concept trying to pull her back. And she refused it every time it came up. So a lot of the things I talk about on this channel, honestly, knowing, admitting openly, looking at where you are starting from, and then discipline, consistency. You have to be consistent with your new reality. You have to be committed to seeing it through, right? She was using all of these things that I try to remind you guys of time and time and time and time again. And then came the stretch that undoes almost everyone. She was doing all of this and nothing in the 3D was moving. The silence just continued, the days, then weeks of the outer world showing her absolutely nothing. This is the exact point where most people turn back. They panic, they decide it's not working and go running back to checking and grieving, which collapses the loss all over again and resets the whole thing. But she didn't do that this time. She persisted. She remained faithful to the assumption, even while the facts screamed the opposite to her. She kept being the loved woman. She kept sleeping in the end. She kept refusing to measure the absence. She held the state through the silence. And then, I'm sure you can guess, he reached out after months of what looked like, and what may, if you didn't know, you would say, oh, that came out of nowhere. But of course, it didn't. It came out of her. And from there, once he reached out, it moved on its own through a series of small, ordinary, unforced, natural steps that she didn't have to orchestrate. And, she probably couldn't have even planned how it played out. They came back together, and the thing she kept repeating to me afterwards was that she couldn't believe how it simply unfolded, how she never had to chase him or send the perfect text or engineer a single part of it. It just came back to her, the way something returns to you when you stop pushing it away. She didn't force it because forcing was never the mechanism. She stopped collapsing the absence into her reality. She moved into the reunion and just stayed there. And the connection that had never truly been broken did the rest. Now, let me bring all of this straight back to you and be very direct about what it means for you and your specific person. If they haven't come back yet because you have been the observer of their absence, you have been measuring the empty space where they should be, and the measuring is what's keeping the empty space there, I want you to know the distance you feel is not real at the level of consciousness, because you and they are entangled in a way that silence and time and even another person cannot touch. And the version of your story where they have already come back to you is not a fantasy you're desperately hoping for. It already exists. finished right now, and you are free to choose it. So let yourself choose it. Your entire job is to select it and to move into it and just simply refuse to leave, which comes down to the same 3 things my client did. You change your concept of yourself into the person who is loved and chosen and already has the relationship, because they can only ever reflect who you say you are. You live from the end, occupying a simple scene each night that assumes the reunion has already happened until your subconscious accepts it as normal. And you stop observing the absence. You stop checking, you stop measuring, you stop refreshing, you stop collapsing that one state that you don't even want. And then you persist through the silence, through the apparent nothing, holding steady until your assumption hardens into fact, the same way it did for her. If she can do it, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And everything in you wants to watch them to feel safe, but the watching is the very thing keeping them over there. The moment you stop needing to see it to believe it and simply become the person who already has it, you free the connection to do exactly what it has always been wanting to do. You are not powerless in this. You are the observer collapsing the infinite potential into one reality. And the observer is the one who gets to decide what becomes real for them. If you want my help doing this the way my client did, changing your self-concept, holding the reunion steady until it comes back to you in the 3D, that is exactly what we do together one-on-one in my coaching program. You can click the link down in the description. There's also a link in the pinned comment if that's easier for you. You can book a free one-on-one call with me. We can jump on that call, talk about what you want to manifest. Usually it's a specific person, but it doesn't have to be. Whatever it is for you that you want to manifest, we can talk about what your specific blocks are, stumbling blocks, what's got you, blocked from manifesting exactly what you want, collapsing the thing that you actually want into your reality. We'll see if we're a good fit to work together. Thank you all so much for being here, watching this one, watching till the end. I appreciate every single one of you. See you in the next one.